Miami recently, and there have been more police officer deaths between those. There will be tomorrow and the week after that, unfortunately. And we're going to highlight some of those from time to time. This one in Miami was particularly disturbing. 2 Miami-Dade police officers, 2 veteran officers, over 40 years of service between the two of them. And I quote one of the spokespeople, "This unit is very well trained, very well armed, and highly protects itself. They knew what they were doing. It was a tragic incident that we hear too often in Miami, that we see here too often in Miami-Dade, of a violent suspect who couldn't care less." That suspect's name is Johnny Sims. I can say that because Johnny Sims, thankfully, is dead, but not before he stole the lives of 2 police officers in Miami, ambushed, serving a felony fugitive homicide warrant. His tattoos resembled his lifestyle. Hey, I have nothing against tattoos, trust me. But when they talk about killing and his criminal lifestyle, all 18 or 19 or 20 of them, however many there were, this guy was wanted for a murder committed in October, and a very well-trained group of officers approached his mother's house. She opened the door, she let the officers in, he comes busting out firing, takes down 2 of the police officers on the scene before he is shot and killed, thankfully, by the 3rd. And that leads me to this week's Bonehead of the Week. You know, it angers me, it really angers me, because here we go, yet again, another grandstanding politician, this time Representative Alcee Hastings from Florida, Democrat. Imagine that. Condemned the acts of violence in an official statement. This just kills me, the official statement, Sean. And I quote Alcee Hastings, "My thoughts and prayers are with all those affected by the tragic and senseless deaths of 2 Miami-Dade officers this morning. I have been deeply concerned about Florida's relaxed gun control laws, and now more than ever it is clear that stronger gun control measures are needed." Are you kidding me?
You know what, Mark? I think we've touched on something here that may upset you.
You edited part of it out too, James. Probably not a bad thing. That was off of a clip from Sunday's broadcast when I opened up the show. If viewers to American Trigger Sports Network recall, James, about, I guess it was, 3 weeks ago, right after Christmas, we discussed here on the show the horrible case of the Georgia State trooper who was murdered on the side of the road making a traffic stop. And I put the photographs of the 18 mugshots. Actually, I couldn't even fit all of his mugshots up on the screen. There were 18 total. I think we were able to fit 12 of them up on the screen. A career criminal. And it angers me beyond belief. And as viewers probably are aware, over the course of the last few days, we've had 11 officers across America murdered. And in every single one of those cases, every single one of them, we are looking down the barrel, pun intended, of a career violent criminal that are causing these crimes and are killing these officers. It's despicable. And when I saw the statement, read the statement from Alcee Hastings, I couldn't believe my eyes or my ears. I'm speechless, James.
Yeah, and I can understand that, and it is a ridiculous statement on his part. Now, I was under the impression that Florida had a better set of rules out there, and that, well, I didn't even know a guy like Hastings was out there who would make such a ridiculous statement. But I don't want to bring too much attention to him, other than the fact that it was pretty dumb on his part, and I'm sure he's getting a lot of people in Florida who are probably responding to that statement, much as you did. Now, since you had that radio show, and since you did the show on that, you must have gotten a lot of feedback.
I did. In fact, viewers can check out our newest website, boneheadoftheweek.com. We actually, where I give out the Bonehead of the Week award every week on Armed American Radio. It's actually one of the most popular segments we have, because it seems like dumb comments are the norm anymore. It's almost like people are lining up saying, hey, pick me, I'm going to say something really off the wall here. Let me tell you how off the wall this comment is when we're talking about what's at stake here, and people in positions of power who are literally playing games with our freedoms. Florida, you are right, James, has a very tough law. It's called the 1020 Life Law. What that law in Florida means is And I should preface it with this. The murderer, Johnny Sims, had 10-20-life tattooed on his body. The 10-20 life tattoo that he has or had referred to the 10-20 life law. Carry a gun during the commission of a felony in Florida, mandatory 10 years. Use that gun, fire it. For example, fire up into the ceiling and say, everybody get on the ground, this is a holdup. Mandatory 20 years. If someone is injured or killed, life. It's a very strict law, and it has dropped Florida's crime rate and by double digits in many cases over the years since its implementation. He had this tattooed on his body. Does Representative Hastings really believe that another gun control law is going to stop an individual who was being served a felony homicide warrant for a murder he committed with a crime in October, just months earlier? What's he going to do? Tattoo this gun control law on his body, James? It's absurd, because it's people like me and you that are going to be the ones that are going to suffer, and this is how we fight for our freedoms week after week. And statements like this just exemplify what it is that we are up against, what Rachel is up against, and what, in the last segment, what we're all up against with what David Codrea was just talking about. Right. It's an ongoing battle. It's an ongoing battle fighting for our freedoms, and these are the statements we see that exemplify exactly what it is we're fighting for.
Well, I do want to say this, though, on the part of the law enforcement, that, again, you have brought out to us what it is to be law enforcement and what they have gone through. I mean, I have a clip that I'm probably going to run next week on a simple traffic stop that ended up in a shooting. I mean, we've seen too much of this. And I think you just told us that 11 officers have been murdered now. Is that, are you including last year, or are you just talking about this year?
No, I'm talking about just in the past week. Let me give you an example. In fact, the case of the two Miami officers that we're referring to here with Johnny Sims down there, at their funeral, sir, at their memorial service on Monday, the department was being informed of a very similar tragic situation that happened right down the road from my hometown, my stomping grounds in Tampa. Two St. Petersburg veteran officers were killed, and a U.S. Marshal wounded while serving a felony warrant on an individual with a very violent past who, again, for whatever reason, was let out of prison able to commit a crime like this. And we've seen this, an Indiana officer was taken off of life support just today, hours ago. And I quote from that story from the police chief. In an emotional statement, the chief told reporters, the Moore family has begun the process of giving David back to God. This is a police officer who was shot by a 60-year-old released prisoner. How much of time do we have to put up with this, for crying out loud, James? This is insane.
Yeah. You know, during your show, though, and unfortunately I haven't had a chance to see it, but I know I'm going to listen to it as soon as I get off the air. Did you get a lot of feedback, anything from law enforcement on this issue?
I actually did. I've received a couple of emails, one of them in particular from Virginia. I wish I could pull that up. I don't want to search for it now on the air, but it says finally, and then he put in bold print in capital letters, wow, W-O-W. Someone who is echoing the sentiments that I face every day on the street. It's great to have you out there. Thank you so much for what you're talking about. Very few people talk about this in the terms that we do. Very few people will take Alcee Hastings to task for making a comment like that in the media. It's very disturbing. An official statement. How about the official statement, James? Mention Amanda Hayworth, the officer, the female officer who was murdered. She is the single mother of a 13-year-old. Not an official statement that our hearts and prayers are with the family. That's fine. He's going to utter that official statement because that's an official statement. He'll say that when a county worker dies of natural causes. Let's talk about what really happened here. And the problem is Florida law allowing this individual out. So yeah, I have gotten a lot of emails that thank us for bringing these things to the forefront in the way that we do, in the way that we discuss them very bluntly and very openly, and we talk about them in very, very realistic terms that the mainstream media simply won't touch.
Yeah, and I think we all appreciate that, you know, because we don't hear enough from the other side. You know, we hear a lot about how law enforcement is this and law enforcement's that, and it's usually on the negative side. But you know, a lot of people don't really understand the uniform, they don't understand the badge, and they don't understand what every officer faces when he goes on duty for his shift. And I think you do a marvelous job, and I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm starting to get emails right now of coming on the show and telling us that side of the story, because I think more of that needs to be done.
James, it really is. I appreciate the opportunity to do it. I have friends that are law enforcement. I'm not law enforcement, but it fascinates me because I cover these things on a regular basis. I see these stories, and when you see 11 of them, now, you know, law enforcement, you're seeing stories right now on Fox News and some of the other mainstream media that law enforcement is fearing that there's some kind of thing about, you know, maybe they're targeting police officers. These are just tragic coincidences. In order for that to happen, you'd have to have the subject, Johnny Sims, down in Miami, who, you know, talked to the individual shooter up and say that's not happening. There's no conspiracy here. This is just a fluke but there's a common underlying thread. And that underlying thread is every single one of these people are career violent criminals, not law-abiding people. And this is what points to why we need the concealed carry laws that we have now. These people walk amongst us every single day, and you would never know it unless maybe you saw the 1020 life tattoo on the murderer's hand. I mean, you know, who puts this on there? Who puts the tattoo like that on their body? I have nothing against tattoos. I have a couple.
Right. Well, I think you brought out a good point there, Mark, and like I said, I appreciate you coming on every week, and I know that my viewers appreciate you coming on every week and showing us that side, and I'd certainly like to continue that with you, because I don't think enough attention is brought to law enforcement and what they have to go through. As a matter of fact, I think we just read some statistics here the other day. There are 700,000 law enforcement, give or take, law enforcement people in the United States, and for all that many people, they sure get a bad rap sometimes. And thank you very much for showing us that side. Now, I got one more question for you. Sure thing. Shoot. Where's your tattoo? Oh, I've got two of them actually. Oh, don't show them. I have one up here. I'm not gonna show you. Don't be standing up now and showing me that tattoo. Mark, we'll see you next week.